No, it's gonna be cold.
And this is the guy that
T
turned
is
it
the
on.
best.
This is the guy that turned it
T,
on.
you're the
Yeah,
best.
for a little bit. Not
Nah,
just,
T, you're the best. Do you know what you need to be? I really hope you become a movie star. I swear down, because this is the kind of bougie stuff that movie stars do.
I will become movie star by next year.
By the grace of God.
Amen.
Amen. All right, cool. Yes. Good evening, everyone, to the Goodman audio listening experience, aka the Goodman Factory podcast. It's your boy Goodman Daps here today with Goodman Demeji, Goodman Manny, Goodman T. Shout out to Goodman Malik on the camera and the ones and twos. Pew. You know the vibes. So today, as you know, we always love to be able to speak on topics that are popular and those that aren't so commonly spoken about. And today, we want to talk about the topic of being able to open up, or rather the over-encompassing idea of opening up. I feel like for us as individuals as a whole, it's very, very important to be able to do that. But we can also acknowledge how there are certain factors, for example, that make it easy for one to open up, or factors that make it very hard for one to open up. And that depends on a whole, array of different factors. So obviously the four of us here today are ideally going to want to speak about that and, just ideally be able to drop some gems and being able to address that and so on and so forth. So let's think of the first question to ask. And obviously I'll put this out to the floor, to the good men. As a whole, do you think you are able to open up? Don't be shy, boys. I can see all of you looking around awkwardly.
Struggling
Like,
to open up. What's the question? No, because it's so vague. It's like,
all right,
can you
okay.
open up?
All right, cool.
Yes.
All right, cool. Do you feel it is easy for you to open up about certain things? So it could be any particular thing, something work related, maybe emotional, mental, religious, whatever the case is. Would you say, as a whole, is it easy for you as an individual to be able to open up and communicate when you are opening up accordingly?
I think I can open up, but it depends on who I'm opening up to.
Okay.
I'm so used to not opening up that I feel like I don't need to, which I guess is unhealthy. But then I do have my release and people that I can open up to. So, and even with those, I wouldn't say it's easy, but if I have to open up, then I know when to and who to go to open up.
Yeah, I hear that. I absolutely hear that. I guess it kind of stems back into one of our prior episodes in terms of support circle in your group or something like that. So I hear that.
So I don't know if it's easy. It's not easy because then I feel like for it to be easy, it should come natural to you.
Yeah, I hear that.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm great at opening up at all.
Okay.
This is mad, This is like the most stock for word I've ever seen you, bro.
Yeah, word. You're usually quite expressive in that.
How they're celebrating.
Nah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's probably one of my obvious flaws. I think it's certainly what my wife would say, and it goes hand in hand with communication as well.
Wait. So, communication is your flaw, or opening up is your flaw?
It's weird. You know what it is? Communication in terms of from a professional point of view is actually one of my strengths.
Yeah.
But opening up with my family or with close friends, it's not something I do well. I don't do it well. I don't do it enough, and I certainly don't do it well. And when I think about it in great detail, I link it back to just the experience I had growing up. The relationship with my parents, for example. I never saw a good example, I don't think, of my parents just communicating and opening up to each other. It may be a positive way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that with my siblings as well. As we've gotten older, we've kind of learned to do that a lot better. But I learned to start opening up with my wife. Because for her, it's communication and opening up was key.
It's
key.
key.
If you've got an issue, let's talk about it. Don't walk around the house. Don't walk around hoarding those feelings or having an opinion and not saying anything. That's not going to help anybody. But for me, that's always my go-to.
Yeah.
I think because I always used to what's the word? I used to trust myself too much. I used to think that, you know, if something's bothering me, I trust myself to be able to get over it.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe it's not too much of an issue. Maybe I'm just gonna keep it to myself and see if I can manage it, see if I can deal with it.
Would you say you're a bit of an overthinker in that regard?
100%. And more often than not, what would happen is I'm not able to manage that situation or deal with that very well. And it will build up until there's a big blow up.
Yeah.
And that was the case with my family. That was the case with my wife. And so that's why I say, you know, for me, I think opening up isn't my strength. It's something that I'm working on. And I guess if I was going to answer the question, you know, how am I able to do so, or why is it getting better? Because my wife encourages it, ultimately, you know. And I still think that for someone like me, you know, like talking therapy, which is something I've only started exploring within the last, like, maybe 9 months, I think I would benefit from therapy of some sort, you know. And I've said that to a few of my boys, that there's so many things that we've gone through, it's never left my mouth. You know, like I haven't spoken about it in public.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, like, you know, deep stuff that I think we've gone through as a group of friends, and no one's really kind of spoken about it. So yes, I wouldn't say that speaking up is something, or opening up is something that I'm very good at. I don't think. No.
Is that just with negative stuff, or are you able to open up sort of when it's you know, with how you feel in a positive light?
Yeah, if it's positive, I can do it. Like I said, in a professional setting, my colleagues wouldn't say that to you at all. They'd say the opposite. It's like, oh man, he can communicate with everybody. He can speak to parents. He's a good listener. He you know, he's able to kind of draw people in. But when it comes to like personal stuff, it's the opposite. I'm not good at it at all.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because you said that whole thing of at work, for example, you're able to kind of talk and communicate freely. And I feel like a big part of that, and I feel like a lot of people do that, I think to a degree, it's easier sometimes to be able to vent and offload stuff to people who you know don't have a deep place in your life, because realistically, it's pretty much going to be between you and it's not, because here's the thing, right? Sometimes, like, when you have a thing of opening up, for example, it's a case of you're opening up to someone ideally that you know and trust really well. And ideally, it's a case of either you're opening up to them so that either you can vent or so that you can get advice. But sometimes you don't want advice. Sometimes you just want to vent. You just want to highlight, like, you know what, this issue is shit. And I just want to know that, you know, I've actually been able to speak it to someone. So, like you said, in terms of telling someone at work, it's a lot easier to tell someone at work who you know that really and truly will leave that office and not give a fuck about what you've told them, right? As opposed to actually, you know, going and speaking to family like your brother, your sister, your mom or dad, or, you know, in your case, you know, your wife.
And you know, there's going to be potentially back and forth, which can end up in arguments. And well, myself, I know that I don't like arguing. I don't like conflict. I rather like just keep that stuff away from myself and keep it moving.
That's so interesting, because I feel like where so many of us struggle with opening up, we've had that one experience where it's just a bad experience, where we have opened up and we've been vulnerable, and the person on the receiving end has been, I don't know, dismissive. And we're like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
You told me I can come to you.
It's bait.
It just takes one. It just takes one, especially when it comes to trust.
Yes.
If that trust is broken, it can scar you for life, and you'll just revert and you'll do whatever feels safe for yourself.
Yeah.
So holding it in, you know what I mean? Like letting time be the healer or whatever. Too many times I've done that, and it's ended in me exploding when, like, I've just had enough. Were you gonna say so?
I was gonna say, sometimes it's not even like if trust is broken. Sometimes it's just how they made you feel when you opened up. Like, like if you make someone like if I've been made to feel small, or I've been told that I'm being too sensitive in that one moment that I've decided to open up, you're not gonna hear from me again after that, because it's just like, one, I don't want to come across as a victim. This is just my own like personal issue. Like, so I don't want to come across as a victim. I don't want to come across as someone that moans a lot. So these are all the factors that lead to why I wouldn't open up on a regular basis in the first place. So if I didn't do it, and then you say, oh, you're just being sensitive, or you're looking into it too much, you're overthinking it. I've only said it because it was something that I was really struggling with. I was dealing with this. And at that moment in time, I thought, you know what, let me just kind of overcome this whole issue of not opening up. Let me just tell you what's on my mind. Let me just be 100% with you. And then you say to me, oh, you're being a bit too sensitive, or you're overthinking it. It won't even be an argument. I'll just say to you, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Noted.
true. Yeah.
Simple. Yeah.
Alright, I see you.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, cool, no worries, that's fine. I know where I stand.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's important to create environments where it's possible for you to be able to speak. Like even this podcast, for example, I will share more on this podcast than I've probably shared with some friends or with family members. And I guess the reason for that is one, because there's an element to what you were saying earlier in that I know you guys, but I don't know you guys incredibly well. Like we know each other through a mutual, which was Goodman Malik.
Yeah.
Malik. So it's one of the things where it's like I'm open to say stuff, but I also know that there isn't that much fear of judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
hear that.
also a cathartic release where we're able to come and just let go and share and speak and we've all had shared experiences, and it's very difficult to get 4 or 5 free people in a room. And it's like, you know what, I get that, and I've been through that, and I've experienced that. Because when you introduced the topic and you said about opening up, we were silent.
Yeah.
It's like, whew. But that shows that we're all
It's about to be a big one.
yeah, but we're all on the same page. And
Yeah.
my sort of memory went back to times where I've went to open up, or I've tried to open up, or I've struggled with it. And I'm guessing that's sort of where everybody's mind went to. And like you said, we don't know each other, but we've had similar experiences with this same topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, let's hear the question again, please.
So in the sense of,
When I did it, you laughed.
No, that was right at the beginning of the session, bro. You had no excuse. That was right at the beginning of the session. But I just want to refresh my mind, you know.
just updates.
Yeah.
Nah, so in the sense of, would you say it's easy or difficult for you to open up about things?
Okay, for me, I know it's very difficult to open up about things, and I think as we've done like more and more episodes on these type of subjects or whatever, I find that I've basically just had trust issues from a young age. I've never really felt like I've had anyone close enough to me to share my thoughts and feelings, and at times when I might have, I've been made to feel small, or my feelings have been made to sound like I'm emotional. When I was young, I heard that a lot. You're very emotional. You need to calm down, you know, all that type of stuff. And hearing it so many times as a child, I guess it made me suppress my feelings a lot.
And it does have an effect on your attitude towards things of, you know, vulnerability, healthy communication, and stuff like that. And I completely get it from your point of view, where you're saying it's like a case of stuff that you've had potentially from childhood still ends up playing an effect. And again, kind of talking to what you spoke about earlier about the whole concept of therapy regarding these things. Therapy, I can't speak it amongst a lot of other individuals, but I know for the most part, not to generalize, but amongst black men and amongst a lot of their circles, the whole topic of therapy is basically, if you're going to therapy, basically, you're tapped, fam. You got some deep-seated issues, and the funny thing is that I feel like it's that whole thing of you're either going to therapy because they feel unless it's a case of you've been sectioned, you don't need therapy.
That's so interesting.
But you know what? You say that, then I think about how my parents and possibly their parents have viewed therapy and, you know, anything mental health related
As
you're a witch, you're a demon, you need to go church, you need to go pray, you need deliverance.
Everything is the devil.
It's never a thing that can be spoken about
or discussed in a manner whereby you try and break it down. Yeah.
It always feels like you're going to be judged if you mention anything, like even depression. I could never talk to my parents about depression. If I ever said that, they'll say, "Oh, what age are you that you're depressed? You don't know anything about depression."
And that's feel like we do that as well, though, when someone tells us that they're sort of going through something, where we're dismissive without realizing that we're being dismissive.
Nah, you know what? I'm not.
I don't think we are in comparison to
No, do you know,
parents.
I get where T's coming from. It may not be as bad as the way our parents say, where it's like, oh, what are you complaining about? But I do get where you're coming from, where you be like, oh, I'm a bit depressed. Oh, no, you're all right, man. That in itself is dismissive.
Especially when you're...
I
Do you
get
guys actually hear, let's say your boys, for example, do you actually hear your boys say those lines?
What lines?
I haven't heard I don't think I've heard any of my boys say like even as like just as a passing comment. Oh, I'm depressed.
No.
My
I've
boys
definitely
have
heard
told
that.
me. I feel like me and my like, especially my uni friends, because we went through so much. Like in uni, like going through 3 years of uni, that shit, like that was depressing, and a lot of friends went broke. A lot of friends lost their parents, family members, or whatever, and we had to console each other. And whenever someone was feeling down or to the extent of being depressed, I felt like because I had been through a lot of stuff myself, I was able to empathize with the friend. I wouldn't dismiss their feelings because I know how it feels to have my feelings dismissed, and I know what it feels like to have so and so happen. And it can be a very dark place, and all you want is to know that you've got people by your side, not just feeling alone. I was gonna say something, bro.
No, I was not in agreement with you.
Man was like,
Nah.
yes.
No, as in I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Nah.
I think as I get older, I learned that communication is key, and especially being in a relationship as well. If there's no communication, there's no foundation, and it's literally just a ticking time bomb. If it's not one thing, it'll be another. Being in a relationship has taught me a lot. Like, you can't just think things through by yourself. You're in a partnership. You're in a team. If you think one thing, if you have ideas in your head, or you want to make plans in your head, you can't just be by yourself. It's got to be a joint effort. And like you said before, if something happens that annoys you or whatever, you can't just hold it in, because it's only a matter of time, and it will bleed over into other things and other people. It's best just to talk it there and then, get the situation handled, then you can move on.
For me, I'll be honest with you, that's a lot easier said than done.
Bro,
I
it's
was
hard,
thinking the same thing.
especially when you've lived a certain way most of your life. It's hard to then break out of it. It's unlearn and learn. And all of that is long, bro.
It's worth it, I guess, in the end.
Oh, it's worth it.
I remember when I tried to have a therapy session and I couldn't open up.
You wasted your money.
It was so funny. We went in there and I sat down and she asked the questions as you do, and she just speaking. And in my mind, I thought, I don't know you. I don't want you to think I have problems.
Were you wearing your shades?
Yeah, no, of course I wasn't. But it got into me. But no, I said I'm just not gonna. I don't know you. I don't want you to judge me or think I have problems yet. I'm in this room on your sofa, and we had 3 sessions. And I said, she thinks I'm sick. Like, I'm a good person. I patterned her.
You know what? That's so
Just a waste of everybody's time.
waste of your own time, waste of your own. But
we have with opening up, where you don't want people to just see you as this guy or person with problems.
Yeah.
And
that's so interesting.
You don't want to be seen as broken.
Yeah, word. But that's also very interesting in terms of what Manny said earlier on, in terms of it's easier to open up to people that you don't know, knowing that it's superficial. But then opening up to someone that you don't know, but is actually likely to be very well versed in terms of what you're dealing with, is actually just as difficult. And a lot of people don't. I don't really think a lot of people take that in either.
But it's interesting that T said that, because for me, I had therapy. I started therapy this year.
Okay.
And the only reason I started therapy is because my wife had said to me many, many times, you need to go therapy. She'd identified for too long now that it's like there's lots of things you're dealing with from your early childhood
That you're not dealing with in a
you're
healthy
not dealing
manner.
with it now, but I think ultimately it's affecting our relationship, and that's not something you want to then take into your marriage or even like fatherhood.
Yeah.
I'm a father in July, and that really hit me. Like, it's like, it's true. Like, some of the
Congrats,
thank
brother.
you. Some of the
Congrats,
issues
bro.
that I'm having to like deal with mentally, they're probably some of the same things that my dad had to deal with, and a lot of these things are just like generational. What I saw is how I then
Normalized stuff.
I normalized it. Yeah, like I didn't see beyond what it was that I had experienced myself, and so I think when I started therapy, I actually didn't mind talking to someone that I didn't know. The issue that I had was that the person that I was doing my therapy session with, I didn't feel like she would understand everything that I was about to like offload
offload
to her. And it's not just a demographic thing. I will make the point that it wasn't a black person. It was a white lady. Lovely, you know, like it was nothing to do with her on the personal point of view or to do with her character, but I know that there were things I was talking about
that culturally she wouldn't get.
Nah. And so I think that was where I had like
a little block.
You had apprehension.
Yeah. Because then I even started to think to myself, like in the middle of a session, because it was like a 45-minute session each time I did it. In the middle of the session, something hit me. I was just like, wait, if I say this thing, does this come back to me?
Yeah.
Like in terms of like in a legal way. Like, you know, like if I say what happened when I was 16.
Then we will remind. They're
that
gonna remind you that
particular
you're, you know, that you can't get. She won't report you.
Well, I would hope that she would do that, but that's what stopped me ultimately from kind of sharing too much. But I had the opposite experience from what you were saying, T, where like I had one session with the same woman where in that session I broke down in tears.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Actually, let me not say I didn't break down. I was crying.
Yeah.
I wanted to
So
hide
you
it. As much
finally
as,
let go.
yeah, I wanted to hide it. I couldn't hide it because I was talking about something I haven't opened up or spoken about in maybe in about 10, 12 years, like not too long after the incident had happened. And so for me, I was even shocked myself. I was like, damn, you let yourself go, man. Like this person's seen you cry. But I took comfort in the fact that it was someone that I didn't really know, you know, like I took comfort in the fact that beyond this meeting, I'm not going to see her. I'm not going to have any contact with
So
her.
in the sense of, you know what, you have that moment to essentially be able to vent fully, ideally potentially get some understanding, leave that session and go back to being
Just do
Manny, the Manny that everyone else knows. But
Yeah.
and I think and you're absolutely right, because opening up as a whole for everyone's experience seems to be quite interesting. I don't know if I've opened up properly to anyone.
You want to open up now?
Absolutely not.
It's a
No,
safe space, bro.
Why not?
Do you know what
Why
it
not
is?
that?
No. I'm capping. I have opened up, and there are a select few people who I do open up to that it's a case of, you know what, come rain, come shine, I can definitely, you know what, open up to you about it. I think the key thing, though, at the same time is knowing that when you do open up about these things, do you want this person to potentially help you work through it, or do you just want to vent? Because sometimes a lot of people don't know the difference between the two. You get it? So if you're talking about a certain thing, I'm telling you this not because I want your advice or because I want you to advise me. I just want to have someone to talk to about it and just say it exactly as it is.
Do you think it's down to that person to let the recipient know that they're looking to just be heard? Or
Oh no, I
looking for advice?
I feel like the person who is venting to someone should absolutely state that either I want to vent, or, you know what, I want your opinion on something. And I say this because when it comes to, for me, right, if my mates open up to me about a potential issue or a problem, my default mode is, okay, how can we fix this? That's me, because
But then
that's
if
the way I'm
someone-
for my people.
But then if you're venting, aren't you venting to that person for some sort of advice?
Not
You
necessarily.
know you want it or not, aren't you?
No, I think
Not
a lot of
necessarily.
people like to vent, and they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, and they don't want to hear anything. It's just that case of, you know what, I can actually not keep this all in my head. I can actually vocalize my thoughts and feelings on this particular thing or a potential series of issues. And I remember that I got into a bit of passer with a couple of my mates sometimes, because I'm always that person of, okay, you come across a situation, how do you solve it? How do we get about doing that? That was me until I think I was talking with one of my siblings, actually. I think it was my older sister. And I think she helped me clarify the difference between wanting to vent for the sake of venting and then venting to someone with the aim of getting advice. So there's this saying, right, which my mum always said to me, which is, a problem shared is a problem halved and stuff. Sometimes I just want to share my problem. I don't want to have it. Please. Make I share, make I come out. Please, let me just share and go. Just because sometimes, you know what, and it's not necessarily because you don't want potential advice on it. It might just be a case of, you know what, right now I am too mentally exhausted to A, go through the explaining the whole situation about where I am or what's led me to it, and then B, now trying to break and then come to a solution. That is mentally daunting for anybody. And not everyone has the mental fortitude to go through explaining a situation and then actively trying to think of ways to potentially solve it. That's not for everyone.
You know what's even worse? than a person that's trying to solve a problem. Being impartial when someone's trying,
Yeah.
when someone's venting,
Yeah.
you're not just being the fixer in that situation. You're being the person that's trying to be impartial. That was the problem that I had.
You're right. It's very tough,
I had
especially when you know that person.
Yeah. I had like friends, like more so with my partner, and she might be venting about something, and I'm listening to the whole thing and I'm analyzing it, which is just what I would do. And in my head, I'm thinking, in that situation, you probably could have done this a bit better, or you know, like, oh, I can see where the other person's coming from, and I've learned the hard way that that's just as damaging.
That's not.
Because do you know what it is? If you did that for me, I would appreciate it. Because when I vent to you, I actually want you to be a voice of reason almost all the time.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, I'm not really going to vent. So if I'm really venting, it's because this is bothering me.
Yeah.
I need a second opinion on this. I need someone else to kind of tell me that I'm being irrational or I'm not being irrational.
That's me.
But when when someone else is talking to me, I'm expecting to do the same thing for them. So they might be venting about something, and in my head I'm thinking, all right, cool. So yeah, you probably might have done a bit too much there. Or this is maybe where they were coming from, and I've been told like, stop doing that. Like if I'm telling you something, just listen. Don't take any sides. Don't be impartial. Like just listen. And I think that for me was like when I was like, okay, cool. This whole communication thing isn't just about listening and then giving advice or trying to be the bigger person in that situation. Sometimes you just have to
listen.
Shut your stinking mouth.
Yeah. You know what? You know what? That's so funny. That's something that I've clocked a lot with my lady friends as opposed to my guy friends. So when it comes to my guy friends, for example, and they tell me about a situation, I can tell them straight, you know what? In this regard, you kind of fucked up. And they can take it and they can be like, oh, but how though? And then obviously you'll break it down and then they might be like, oh, okay, yeah, I hear it, right? But then I feel like a big part of that is because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of guys tend to have a fundamental aspect of logic in the way that they want to assess things. So it's a case of, you know what, let me detach the emotion from this and let's look at this from a purely logical, purely from a place of principle and logic, right? With some of my close lady, for instance, when they tell me about some of their issues, right, I was talking with them and they'll be telling me some of this stuff and I'll just be like, okay, but you were wrong here. And they'll be like, why the fuck do I tell you anything? And I'm just like
don't do it.
But I don't think that's an issue of logic. Maybe perspective or clash of perspectives, not necessarily logic, because I've got a lot of female friends who are logical and a lot more logical than I guess my male friends.
Male friends, okay.
So I just think sometimes they might tell you something from their perspective, and sometimes because we've not lived obviously as a woman, we're not able to see why they see it like that. Do you get what I mean?
That's
Whereas
fair.
with a guy, it's like, oh yeah, I get that. I've been through something similar and whatever. But that happens a lot of times when you're talking with a female. It's like she sees it in a certain way. You're like, wait, huh? Then they have to sort of break it down to say, yeah, and go through it. Yeah. So I wouldn't put that down to logic.
Okay, that's fair. That's
my
fair.
opinion, obviously. No,
of course. I feel as a result, that's why I've done that whole thing with a lot of my friends, like, you know, male or female, in the sense of, before we start, do you want advice or do you want to vent? For two reasons.
That disclaimer.
Yeah, word. No, honestly, and it saved me so much in so many different ways. Number one, it saves me having to talk more than I need to when I can just shut up, and Lord knows I can talk. And number two,
Lord knows.
I'm going to slap you. I'm going to give you a dirty, stinking slap if you're not careful right now.
Yo.
All right? Be very careful the way you talk to me. All right? In fact, Malik, take him out the show. No, but I think the second one also at the same time is that sometimes, you know, that whole saying of, yeah, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved. But I won't lie, sometimes taking on the emotional burden of some of your friends' problems, it can weigh you down.
Yeah, you know what? You know what?
Can weigh you down.
I read in the book and it was saying, I think it was the 48 Laws of Power, and it was saying, stay away from the miserable people.
Bad energy.
Yeah, bad energy, because you will take on whatever they're going through.
Well.
Like, it will rub off on you. Yeah, without even knowing, you're listening to all these negative things, and you know you're worrying about stuff that's outside of you. You carry it on, and that can fuck up your energy and your vibe and your progress. And
It's such a
like-
selfish way of thinking, though. When you deep it, it's like
Yeah,
it's
I was gonna say there's something about finding a balance between that because
Yes.
because many people will say that like, oh, like I'm gonna cut off anyone that's got like too much, bad vibes, too much bad energy, too many complaints.
You know why I
But
find
if
that
those
so?
people
Yeah.
are your friends, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure if something was to happen to them, everyone's gonna be screaming, oh, like the mental health of other people.
Yeah.
Check out on your friends.
Yeah. You gotta be selective. You gotta be, like you said, there's gotta be balance. I wouldn't just, be. Okay, I want to
There
say.
is truth in that.
This is a
though.
dilemma of wording because I can
Yes,
see
I saw it.
I can see that battle on his face. Like, how am I gonna word this without coming across as a dick?
Okay, so for me, it's about self-preservation. You want to make sure that your mental health is intact, but if anyone needs help and they come to you, you want to be able to help them.
Yeah.
My thing is be selective in who you help, because not everyone that is seeking help actually wants help. Some people love drama. Some people love chaos.
Yep.
That's like they're driven. Like they're
The whole world is just around
yeah,
a story to tell you
bro.
about.
There's
Yeah.
always a story. There's always a situation. They love that. So when you're dealing with these people, just know that your input might not help the situation at all. So yeah, listen. But for me, I'd avoid these type of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is clever. I think that's not so much. I don't think being selfish. I think it's just like you said, managing other people's expectations, but also kind of managing
And also being mindful of your own.
of your own.
Mindful of your own expectations in the sense of there's only so much that I could potentially take on in terms of other people's. Like the saying goes, my brother says it to me. He says, "You can't be taking Panadol for someone else's headache." Realistic.
So Nigerian.
No, it's so
Panadol.
Nigerian, but it's so true. You can't be taking Panadol for someone else's headache. Like, there's only so much advice and perspective, and wisdom that you can potentially offer and so on and so forth.
Because at the end of the day, you've got your own stuff, like to get through.
Exactly.
You've got your own things going on. Your universe is different from their universe.
Exactly.
You're listening to the stuff they're going through, but in your own world, it's chaos, and you're still trying to figure out how you're gonna get through the next day.
I guess that's why it's about working together.
Yeah.
Because I used to have this thing with a couple of my closest friends where we would do a prayer circle and we'd meet up once a week or once every 2 weeks to just get together and pray. And I remember like the first couple of sessions, we're just, God look after us, and no one's opening up, but you don't realize it. You're just meeting up together to sort of pray together. Then as the weeks got on and we got more comfortable and we got more vulnerable, and these are friends probably 10 years plus maybe.
Yeah.
So we're close, but we're struggling to open up with each other.
Yeah.
Then before you know it, you feel comfortable and it's God this and I'm going through this and I need help with this, and we're opening up and we're all being there for each other. And it's not necessarily that you're intentionally coming to this space with bad energy. You're coming with everything that you've been through. This week I might have lost a job, or this week there was an argument, or I'm worried, or I'm panicking and stuff like that, or I'm stressed about this. And it's a dark moment or a dark space where you're just letting off. But when you leave, it's that baggage and that burden is no longer
You feel
there.
so
because
relieved, yeah.
You've not only prayed with friends, but you've actually been so transparent, and no one's giving advice because we're taking this and we're giving it to God. But you're not venting, you're just opening up. And that's probably my only experience where I've had it with multiple of my friends. But it's odd because after, like, let's say on a normal day where you're talking, no one's opening up.
No.
But when you come to that space, it's like, boom, this was it. And I think that's what it's all about. Just having that, you have to have bad energy in order, or you have to allow it to be expressed in order to solve it. If that makes sense. If you don't, then you just suppress it and it's, oh yeah, you know what, positive vibes, good vibes. And you're never actually dealing with anything that's anything bad, because everything's supposed to be good.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, what ends up happening is when it's not expressed or it's not potentially vented, what ends up happening is that it ends up manifesting itself in other negative or toxic traits. And that is actually potentially much worse, because it's a case of you're not communicating effectively, you struggle to open up, you choose to keep everything bottled in. It's like that whole saying of, eventually enough pressure will burst whereby there's a defining moment or there's a series of moments that essentially lead to you flipping out, or potentially breaking out, or it being a case of something major or minor ends up manifesting in perhaps different aspects of your life. So for example, maybe it's a case of if you're someone who has struggled to perhaps maybe open to abuse, for example, right? Perhaps it's a case of you've been, abused as a child, like, domestic violence and stuff. Growing up in an abusive household, you don't speak about those things. What then ends up happening, you then manage that by it manifesting in other aspects of your personality. So you potentially have anger issues, right? And so on and so forth.
Or you have a way of behaving towards maybe the sex,
Yeah,
of particular sex, because maybe that maybe it was a mother or father at home that had abused you, and then you have a complex around women and how you start to treat them, or men, and vice versa. I agree. It definitely comes out. I was going to say something that you said, T. I'm glad you mentioned prayer, because although I struggle to open up, generally speaking, prayer has actually been one of the things that's helped me in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years. I don't think it's the only way that I should be opening up. Recognizing that I should do so with my friends, with my family, with my wife, but definitely prayer has, because when there aren't opportunities to meet up with my friends, even though technically there should always be, it's just whatever you prioritize. But me and my mates aren't that great at actually meeting up. Talking through WhatsApp every single day isn't the same as meeting up, like you said.
Preaching. Shots fired.
And talking. It's not the same, but we all do it. And I'm just as culpable in that sense,
Yeah.
So when I don't have those opportunities to meet up with my mates once a week, sometimes not even for a few months, but we're talking every day on WhatsApp, being able to pray for me is one way that I can actually offload some of the things that are on my mind, and I take that quite seriously, because I have understood that when I've got lots of worries and lots of anxieties, one thing that I can do is to pray it out, and by praying, that's literally me talking to God. So that's whether I'm in the shower, whether it's me in the car on my way to work, just talking. And I think there's something powerful in that, because once upon a time I might have thought that was quite stupid.
Yeah.
Because you have a perspective, or so you have a perception on what prayer should look like, which is the yelling and the shouting at 12 midnight that I've seen growing up. But no one actually tells you that, praying is also having a conversation.
Yeah.
But no one talks about the fact that actually prayer is talking with God. And there's no structure around that. It's meant to be as informal, as regular, as consistent as you make it.
Do you know what?
Be.
On that particular topic, that's a big thing, right? In the sense of just realizing that it's not about, obviously at the end of the day, depending of course on your faith, you absolutely acknowledge that, as your creator and so on and so forth. Naturally, there's always going to be a certain level of reverence. But also at the same time, it's not so much the point whereby you can't just have a conversation and just try and gain understanding. And even, again, depending on what you read, depending on what, religion you follow, whether it be Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever the case may be, whatever the religion may be, one of the key things that you actually come to realize with a lot of these key figures in the Bible is that, yes, when it came to doing, so for example, with King David, for example, very, very big on praise and worship, for example. But at the same time, when it came to him praying with God, it was so personal as well. So on that religious aspect, yeah, that's definitely a thing. What I was going to ask, which I guess because we kind of got into it, was have there been any defining factors that has caused you, A, to struggle to open up, or B, been able to reverse that in the sense of now you can open up a lot more as a result? I think you kind of touched briefly on it in terms of, you doing, undergoing therapy, obviously praying with your friends. Obviously, T, you mentioned obviously, a prayer circle, and obviously, you again, Dimeji obviously spoke about, your friends in terms of uni and so on and so forth, and all these other things. Where they're obviously, without having to get too personal, because again, it's purely subjective based on how comfortable you are in terms of talking about it. In terms of a defining period in your life that made you think, or rather that it was such a profound moment in your life that made you think, I'm never opening up to anybody again.
I
right?
think there's been multiple of those, like you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
Parents, one, like you said, relationships. You could have a relationship where that person that is, I guess, you're always listening to, as soon as you now want to open up, you're being too sensitive or man up or whatever it is, and they're not listening to you. So I think it's just it's just an amalgam of just different experiences. I don't think it's just one.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Would everyone
I
be
can,
in
I can,
agreement
I
on that?
can think of so one of my early experiences or earlier moments in my life. I remember I was in secondary school, and we had a singing class. And before this moment, I was fairly confident. I didn't have any problems putting myself out there. You know, I'd be the first to put my hand up and try something new. So it was singing class, and our class were performing a song, and we needed two people to perform a solo. That's solo, right?
Duet.
No. So one person.
One person each. Oh yeah, solo.
Doing a solo. So the female part was sorted, and we was now looking for a guy, but none of the guys put their hands up. So I jumped up, put my hand up, and I said I was down. So I stood in the middle of the class. The track played. I started singing. Then the people who meant to me were boys. They started laughing. And that moment, it completely broke me. I ran out of class and I just sat down crying. And I said, from that point on, I'm never ever putting myself up for anything again. And looking back, it bled onto other things as well. So, like we spoke in the other episode, when it came to presentations in school and anything where I had to speak in front of people, I would cry, I would break down, it'd block me. And it was only until I started going drama school. This is the moment where I realized I could start opening up to people and kind of removing those blockages. So one of the early sessions, we gathered as a group and we spoke about moments in our lives where we felt our confidence was affected, our ability to communicate with people. And I explained the situation, and I felt like everyone was listening. As I was telling my story, I was looking around and everyone was looking at me, which felt like I knew I was in a safe space. And even telling the story, I cried not because I was angry or sad, but it was the first time explaining it to a group of people and knowing that there's no need to be ashamed of it, because I felt ashamed of it for so long. It's embarrassing. You're singing in front of people, and like singing itself is very, very personal. Just like acting is very personal. It's a part of you. It's not like you're being someone else. It's you're presenting yourself, and to have that laughed at, it's not easy, and it's not easy to cope with. And yeah, it's something that I'm still getting over now, but through drama school and just accepting that it's not on me, it's on the kids at the time. Kids can be very horrible. Kids say stuff that they don't really know how detrimental it can be further down the line. So
I'm thinking of that.
Like I'm like, I've been there myself, laughing at people and stuff. You don't realize how it can affect someone further down the line. And it massively affected my self-confidence and my ability to even just be open about the way I feel to people. I felt like I just didn't need to. I'd keep everything to myself. If anything bothered me, I'd keep it to myself. I wouldn't put myself in a position where I could be judged pretty much.
Your confidence would be knocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one particular moment in my life that I think it really affected me. Not just in that moment, but I think up until the point where I realized actually it's all right to be able to speak about this. So when I was 17, my best friend passed away in a car accident.
Sorry to hear.
Sorry, man.
Cool. And so he passed away with two of my other school friends. They passed away in a car accident. And two of my other friends survived the car accident, and they just so happened to be brothers. And so, like, I really, really struggled with that. Like, really, really struggled with that. So I'm just going to have to take my breath for a sec.
That's cool.
So what was happening was like 2 weeks after they had passed, I was getting these nightmares or dreams, however you want to look at it. And in those dreams, I was seeing my best friend in those dreams all the time. You know, it at some point it wasn't comforting anymore because it was almost like I'm seeing someone that I'm not going to see in person anymore.
Mm.
So I really really struggled with that. And long story pretty short, I was emotionally I was a wreck. This happened in the summer just before I was about to start my second year of college. So, and it impacted that year as well quite significantly. And I remember I was just crying constantly at home, crying constantly. The only bit of peace that I got was that it brought all of my school friends back together again, in that we would meet regularly. Like we would meet almost every night after they passed for like weeks. It did become unhealthy eventually because people were then using it as an excuse to then say, you know, we're going to start drinking or we're going to start bunning on behalf of the person that had passed.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like that because my friend wouldn't have wanted us to come here and then say we're doing
For that.
things in his name.
Yeah.
In his name, sorry. So, you know, one day in particular, someone in my family, a member of my family, came into my room and said, like, what's the matter? Like, you know, like, what's going on? And I was clearly, like, distraught. I was still crying. This might have been a few weeks after it happened. And I said to him, I was like, listen, I'm still struggling. Like, I'm just so sad. I'm so depressed. Like, I can't stop crying. And their reaction was, this happened 2 weeks ago. People die. You need to get over it. Like, if it's that bad, why don't you go and meet them? That was the response.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, and prior to that moment, I wasn't close at all with this member of my family. As in, we did not have a good relationship.
At that point, that person's definitely an op.
So when I heard that, I couldn't be angry because it wasn't like, you know, we was talking about trust.
Yeah.
I wasn't trusting him necessarily, like with like some very deep information.
Anyway.
I was just saying it, like, but his reaction at that moment in time,
that floors someone.
Yeah,
It floors
It's
someone.
hard to explain because I wasn't close with him. It wasn't like I was like, oh, you've just broken my heart.
But
it
at the
was
same,
almost like,
It's disappointment. You know,
it was
never
just,
to do
it
it
was a
again.
level of disappointment I can't ever explain. And so
Yeah.
what it did is it caused me to never speak about that situation in public or with anybody in that same detail not ever again, but like for a very, very,
very long time. Yeah.
You know, it led to me putting tattoos on my body because that was my way of dealing with the grief of that. Meeting with my boys every single day, it wasn't like we was having in-depth conversations that was maybe therapeutic for any of us. A lot of toxic things were happening in those moments. So it's not even like even when we were together, we were really opening up about
And actually
something.
supporting each other through the situation.
No, you get
Yeah.
like, it was just a toxic environment. And there was some good that come out from it in terms of us being together.
Yeah.
And there's many people I don't think I'd be as close with now if it wasn't for the fact that when they had passed, it brought lots of people together.
Back together, yeah.
But in terms of the opening up aspect of it, I couldn't talk about it. And so what happened was when I did start talking about it in small doses with my partner, every time I was about to talk about it, I'd choke up. And because I could feel the emotion bubbling up inside of me, I'd stop. I couldn't do it. I'd well up every single time. And I always felt that the only reason why the thing is with death, it's a very difficult thing to talk about because nobody ever gets over someone passing that's close to them.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're able to manage it better if you're in an environment that allows you to just grieve how you need to grieve. If you're supported in that, you know, there's different things that can allow someone to maybe move on in a positive way after they've lost someone. But I didn't have that. So every time I spoke about that particular moment, which was quite a traumatic thing because it wasn't just one friend. I lost 3 friends in one accident, and one friend never learned to speak or talk again. I never wanted to talk about it in public without welling up, and that was the damage that one moment did for me. I think the only way I was able to come out of that a little bit, and it's still a very difficult thing to talk about in great detail. And you know, I mentioned earlier about me like breaking down in a therapy session. It was that's what I spoke about.
Right.
I hadn't spoken, and it was easier to talk about it then because it was someone that I wasn't emotionally attached to in any way, and I guess I kind of recognized that she was a professional and she might be able to do something to support me in this.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I was able to just let it out. But even to talk about it with my wife, because if I was to talk about it with my wife, what I didn't want is for her to put her arm around me or to like console me, because
Yeah.
I felt even more vulnerable and I didn't want to be vulnerable. And that's part of the reason why I don't like to open up, because
Yeah.
being vulnerable.
You don't want to be.
It's a
You don't want to.
state that
You don't
I'm
want to feel
used to.
pitied.
Yeah, I don't want to feel.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, why don't I? Because actually, there's nothing wrong in getting comfort. There's nothing wrong in being told it's gonna be alright, or being hugged, or just weeping or crying.
Mm.
But because I hadn't seen it, and it's not something that was promoted in my life,
Yeah.
I had always seen it as a bad thing. You know?
Yeah, because to a degree you fundamentally see it as a sign of, because with a lot of guys tend to do this whole thing, which I think, especially growing up now and being the age I'm at, is complete like bullshit. This whole thing of vulnerability therefore equals weakness, and it is something that absolutely, especially especially in the male psyche, it has to be eliminated, because when it comes to situations like that, if you cannot break down effectively, right, about certain things, because here's the thing, that saying of no, is it no man is an island or something like that, and that whole thing of a problem shared is a problem halved, is a lot more important than a lot of people take in. I remember one of my guys who I'm still pretty close with now. I remember I went through an insane breakup. And I remember how I broke down like a dickhead. Oh my gosh. It was hard. Listen, shout out to K in it. That's what I'm gonna say. Shout out to K. Cause listen, I remember when I went through that breakup and the way I don't think I'd ever barred out so hard in a very long time. And this guy was on the phone to me the entire time, like just there supporting me. I don't think I'd ever even smoked cigarettes that day. I definitely went through like a 10-pack. Bruv, you would have thought, listen, you know that thing of Ian Bill was like, yeah. That was me, cuz suffering. But as a result of that, like being able to open up about those things, especially with your boys as well, is something that isn't spoken about enough.
Yeah.
We all have this whole thing of, oh yeah, big man, tough, and then the whole, speaking of that whole thing, also, like me and T were talking about earlier, and the whole thing of, oh, you'll be alright, man. Nah.
Or just talking about everything.
Or just talk about everything that's positive.
Everything that's positive. Like
You don't know.
but have no idea. And you know what? I'm guilty of this. People ask you, "Oh, what's good, bro? Yeah, everything's blessed."
No.
I've been thinking of that from the beginning of the question.
Yeah.
It's simple. What are you saying? You good? Yes, brother. Woo, what about you?
Everything's
Yes.
blessed. You just
We're both just there.
All
Yeah, you're
good.
good. I'm
Pat
trying
it
to be
back
like
to them.
you.
Yeah, but the thing is with that, if every time someone asks you, oh, what's going on, and you say what's good, if you have to go into what is actually not good, that itself is draining.
Of course, it's madness if you say hello, because for us, what's good is hello.
Yeah.
So if someone actually said hello, you know what? I'm going through some shit.
It's like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, what
It's
the
what's
hell's
good.
going on here?
That's it. So we're literally just saying what's good as a form of saying
no,
hello,
of
but
course.
yeah, we're products of patriarchy, and like you said, it's all about unlearning toxic masculinity, hyper masculinity, and just stuff that we've been brought up in. And this conversation has just been opening, no pun intended, but so I want to just challenge myself this week to see how it is to just open up with someone. Might say, yo, how's everything? And I might just be honest.
Yeah.
I might.
As you are talking, I'm like,
operative word.
as you lot are
Operative
talking-
word is might. No, I
as
hear
you
it.
lot are talking, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I don't open up.
Nah, for real.
But the thing is, at the end of the day, it all comes down to communication. You work
Yeah.
in communication, then you can open up. You know, it all.
I feel like it comes
Word,
down
word,
to
word, word.
comprehension. Because
Do you know
I can
what?
communicate, but it's whether I can make you understand and you actually understand.
I'll say this because I feel like it's like a train of thought, right? Communication, effective communication is important. Being able to not listen to respond, but listening to comprehend is also very, very important, because only when you listen to comprehend can you actually really take in what's being said, look at it from a perspective of, okay, you know what, this is out of me, this is from this person's position, who I know, how could this potentially be done? And then as a result, the opening up process is a lot easier. But if you can't communicate effectively, and if you're the type of person that listens to respond as opposed to comprehending, forget about it. It won't be good. But my peoples, we have now come to the end of this episode. Love to everybody for listening today. We're glad that we've been able to, we hope we've been able to drop some good gems in terms of what it is to open up. And, if, of course, it's a case whereby, you can't, for example, then I hope potentially that this episode gives you a bit of insight into ideally the processes of being able to break down the barriers that surround one being able to open up. Once again, we are always looking to look after our Goodman customers, and what we're definitely going to be doing is offering GPod 1, which is essentially a discount code for anyone, of course, that is looking to embrace our products, which you absolutely should do, because again, you see the beard, the vibes. Zoom in. It's fresh one. But also at the same time, another thing that we are looking to ideally do is, because we're always, thinking of certain topics, that we like to discuss. But please, if of course, there is any potential topic that you do want to discuss, please do not hesitate to at any of the Goodman Factory members. Better yet, feel free to at Goodman Factory, ask your question and use the hashtag #AskTheGoodman. We will definitely do what we can to be able to discuss it and address it in one of our episodes. And who knows, if you bring up the question, maybe we'll bring you on. Talk your talk. Thanks a lot, guys. If it gets to that, on them ones, absolutely. But listen, thanks so much. Continue listening to the audio experience. Continue to be good men. Have a great one, guys.